The only creature on Earth whose natural habitat is a zoo is a zookeeper. Quote said by Robert Brawl. Hi everyone, I'm Sophia Pfister, and today I'll be talking to you about why wild animals shouldn't be kept in captivity. Animals all over the world are being held in places like zoos, circuses, and places like SeaWorld, and are suffering. This brings up a debate on whether or not these animals should be kept in captivity. I personally disagree with the stance that these wild animals should be held in captivity. To show why wild animals shouldn't be held in captive, it's important to look at how animals like elephants are treated in zoos and how they suffer in zoos. It's important to look at the injustices of SeaWorld against their own animals, and it is important to look at the differences between wild animals in the wild and wild animals in captivity. First, we will talk about how animals suffer in zoos. Zoos claim to provide care, educate the public, and protect endangered species in zoos, but it could be argued that they are only in it for the profit. The pros of keeping these wild animals captive in zoos definitely do not outweigh the cons. According to an article by Justin Moreland called The Future of Zoos, it explains that animals become anxious and depressed when taken out of their natural habitat and placed into zoos. They often have shorter lifespans in zoos than they would in the wild, and they are often aren't provided adequate enclosures to suit their own personal needs, and they simply are just happier in their own natural habitat than captive in zoos. Elephants are one of the animals that suffer the most in zoos because of their massive size. Many zoos don't have adequate enclosures to suit the needs of an elephant because it is so big. And normally in the wild, elephants walk great distances, which is very beneficial and crucial to their health. But in these enclosures, they can't walk, and they often develop foot problems, like arthritis. Next, we will talk about the injustices at SeaWorld. SeaWorld, over the past few years, has been accused of many cases of animal cruelty against their own animals. In an article written by Mark Palmer called SeaWorld in Deep Water, a former employee exposes many of these injustices, such as that these animals are heavily medicated with antidepressants and antibiotics. They are kept unhappy in small concrete tanks, and they die at higher rates at SeaWorld than they do in the wild. This could explain why 3 incidents occurred where animals had killed their trainer at SeaWorld. Animals at SeaWorld are cetaceans, which are aquatic mammals like dolphins and whales, and there are many differences between how they act in the wild and how they act in captivity. According to the Animal Welfare Institute, in the wild, these animals can travel up to 100 miles a day and socialize with other pods. In captivity, they can't travel at all and can't socialize unless they have 1 or 2 other animals with them in their tanks. Echolocation is a very important part of these animals, and in the wild, echolocation is used to find food, to communicate with other animals in their pods, and find mates. In captivity, echolocation is rarely used, and these animals are forced to listen to artificial sounds like filtration pumps and the sounds of people clapping and yelling. In the wild, these animals spend 80 to 90% of their time underwater, only coming up to replenish their air supply, but in captivity, they spend 80 to 90% of their time at the surface. These differences show that captivity is very dangerous on these animals and puts a lot of strain on them, because in the wild, it shows that they are a lot happier than they are in captivity. By looking at how animals are treated in places like zoos and places like SeaWorld, it is easy to see how captivity is harmful to these animals. Wild animals are meant to be in the wild where they belong, not kept captive in cages in places like this. I believe that wild animals in captivity is harmful to them and is something that society needs to change. I'll end with a quote by Gandhi about animals. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm looking forward to listening to your speeches. Have a great day.